With that, we will move to board member updates. And Mr. Gaines, your comments and recommendations.
The first item here relates to this school's board, this SAB, remaining consistent with school boards of the past. In terms, we need to affirm that we will continue to support the consolidated schools who have challenged the state foundation formula. There has been questions raised as to whether or not, because of the construction of this board, we would do that. So I'm asking, no, I'm not asking, I'm moving, I move that we affirm that we will remain consistent in terms of our support of this court action. This Committee for Educational Equality et al. Versus State of Missouri et al. Case number 04CV 323022. That case again involves 250 different school boards or school systems across the state who have sued for full funding of the foundation formula. Now the next one I'm going to ask for is directly related to that because all of this relates to the money that this school system is not getting, and one of the underwriting causes that there have been the budget shortfalls that the school system has suffered. I move that we continue to support and be a part of the other 250 boards of education in this state that we have been a part of in the past.
Mr. Gaines, I'd like to second that. Any discussion? Ms. Penrose?
Ms. Adams? Approve. Mr. Gaines?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
The motion passes, sir.
Similar to the first, there is as well a court action that involves the desegregation, the desegregation case. I will not go through all of the things associated with this, but I will simply say this case, which is known as Board of Education et al. Versus the State of Missouri et al. I don't think you'll have to walk out the room again, really.
Public safety.
All right. I think it's also important that we affirm that we will stay consistent in our support of this case as well. This has to do with the first case. It is necessary for this school system, it becomes necessary for this school system to be fully funded as a final point of the desegregation case, that we continue to fight consistently for the monies that we believe the school system is due from the settlement of desegregation. I move that we continue, that we affirm the position of the prior school boards in this position.
Mr. Gaines, again, I'd like to second that motion. Any discussion? Ms. Penrose?
Okay. I can't write it, so she's talking. Ms. Adams? Approve. Mr. Gaines?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Your motion passes, sir.
Rather than for me to talk about my belief about the next item, which was the recent reduction in force, which I was opposed to, but did not have an opportunity to say anything about, I think it would be more appropriate at this point that Mr. Sullivan address this issue.
Okay. Mr. Gaines, thanks for the opportunity to address this. And let me say to this audience, and most of all to Mr. Gaines and Ms. Adams, in my haste to move forward with the day-to-day business of this district, I had reviewed the reduction in force with Dr. Borisaw. It seemed to be in order to me, but I didn't give consideration to the fact that Mr. Gaines and Ms. Adams would both have knowledge, information, concerns, questions, and any number of issues regarding that reduction in force. And I would like to ask them each at this time to take the time, review this reduction in force that has taken place, meet with Dr. Borisaw, ask questions, please review this matter, as if you had had the opportunity to do that prior to the action being taking place. And upon the completion of that review, I just ask that we get together, talk again, and go through whatever concerns, questions, issues either of you may have in this reduction in force.
That is fine with me, Mr. Sullivan. You know my position on that. This was a very unfortunate situation. I do not want to give the opinion here that this board and this school system is going to have an easier time. But I think we must have a fair, open, and transparent time. So I think it's absolutely important that this body do the due diligence necessary to see that things like this, if they have to happen in full disclosure to those people who are being affected, as well as the students and the other publics that have a stake in the school system. So I welcome your opportunity, but let me say it's not coming from you. It's coming from the entire SAB, or this entire board, who I believe will agree. At least you and I do on this one. So I got a vote. I'll win one thing tonight anyway. So I accept your challenge.
Oh, not a challenge, but an invitation to give us more and better information, frankly. Can we move to item number 3?
I have encountered, and I've encountered this personally as well as my interactions with a number of publics in this community, a question about what the role of the CEO is. This board has had problems with understanding what the capacity is. No, not the board. I have had a problem with understanding not understanding, but thinking that the position that has been taken by Mr. Sullivan in the capacity of CEO has possibly in certain instances gone beyond what I believe the law says it should do. I think that clarifications have been necessary to the public. We've had, and I'm sure that this will be clarified tonight with the vote that I will lose. But I think we've had a situation to occur where people have said, do we have a CZAR in this community and with this board? I have felt we do not. My reading of 781, and I might mention the fact that I also was one of the people to help draft 781, did not confer that kind of status on the position of CEO. My understanding of it is that the CEO is the superintendent of schools, or as the language says, embodies all of the broad general powers of the superintendent of schools. It is no reference to being the CEO for this board, although I'm pretty sure that will happen shortly. I have prepared and will have available for the press and the public a direct statement from the law in terms of what this position is supposed to do and my interpretations of that. Now, I'd like to go further and say that I have my beliefs. I'm sure that the two people that I serve with have a different belief. As a result of that, and I think this is critical to everything that will happen in this district going forward, so that we understand the difference between implementation and policy. I have requested as of yesterday a review of this and a discussion and an opinion from the State Attorney General's office. I have been informed this evening, excuse me, that the State Attorney General will call my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock to discuss this. Rather than to vote on this item tonight, which will end up being how we set our bylaws, which will be another not very comfortable position for me tonight, I would welcome my two colleagues to come to my office, or we can arrange a telephone conference so that each of us better understands at least another point of view. Not suggesting that the Attorney General will be able to say what will soothe or what will clarify this entirely, but at least it represents another point of view of what this position is. Again, what I believe it to be is embodied in this in this document that was not written by me, and it was not written by this law firm. So this firm, it was not at the cost of the taxpayers of this city. It was with volunteer attorneys who reviewed this and came down with the same opinion that I have of what the position is. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Mr. Gaines, may I respond to that?
Absolutely.
We have each had lots of time to consider this issue. Like you, I've talked to many people. It's obvious that I talk to different people than you.
Right.
And the conclusion that I reached as a result of that discussion was simply this, that the statute did in fact intend one person to serve as CEO in, if you will, a management position, and also to serve in a CEO or leadership role of the board. It was clearly conveyed to me by every leader in this community, both at the state and the city level, that never ever should that position be misused, abused, used incorrectly in any way. Certainly in any way that was to the detriment of the kids. That in fact, if you will, the simple charge to me was, make sure everything you do is for the betterment of the kids in the district. And that is my intention. And I ask you, regardless of how this may come out, if you ever see my actions in any way be to the detriment of the kids in this district, please call me down publicly on that. I have.
When we ripped 34 people in this school district, I think that was to the detriment of the kids. And I did call you. As it relates to this, we have a certain and a very direct disagreement in terms of what this intends. I have a position that says it does not intend you to be the CEO of the board. I absolutely concur. It gives you the right of superintendent, and you can basically function as the superintendent with or without the superintendent that is in place at this point. And I think it's clear from my reading and the people that I talk to, which obviously are different, that you have that right. And I under no circumstances would challenge that right, and came on this board with the assumption that I would work with you in the position of superintendent of schools, and as a fellow board member who also had one vote on policy, just as I have and as Ms. Adams has. I cannot conceive of any kind of structure that would allow a person who is implementing a plan to also set the agenda for when those plans could be heard. And that's effectively what happens if one person is embodied with that kind of authority. That is not what I believe the intended purpose was. And this is one, as you say, once we finish tonight and these things are wrapped up, they won't be wrapped up for me, because I don't think this is right, and I don't think any one person has the right to basically control or be in a position of extraordinary control of both the implementation of policy and the setting of policy from the standpoints of the way the documents will read that will be presented here tonight, that again I got in a clear form just a few minutes ago from the law firm that I didn't vote to accept.
Okay. Any other comments on this?
No.
To item 4.
On this board in 1983, this district was unaccredited. In 18 months, the system was re-accredited, fully accredited. Now, there are things that happen and that things that have to be done and planned for that to occur. I fundamentally believe that the three of us, if we can figure out ways to work together, and I'm committed to trying to do that, I think we can basically get accreditation back in this system. But I don't think it's necessary for us to set up permanent structures for us. It is easier for us. I offer this as a very simple way of reviewing the way the elected board chooses to conduct its meetings consistent with the laws in the state of Missouri. and say it's real simple. If they're a 7-member board and we're a 3-member board, if we run into a problem, our votes will allow us to change things immediately. It gives us a way to do things such as that. That was the intent of this. But it by no means is to create a situation where we're trying to be self-perpetuating if we're in the business of working ourselves out of a job. Now the next thing is, what I put down here and the way this is structured will not cost the taxpayers any money. I think we have already paid for an assessment and another point of view in terms of how this district should add by paying for the legal representatives here to redress and make, quote, more efficient the way we conduct business. So I offer that up as a way we could do this, and we would be consistent. And when we do our functions and go out of business, it would be very simple for the elected board, who was elected by the people in this community, who should reassume these positions, to come in. And I would hope we're not trying to create structures that will cause us to be here any longer than is absolutely necessary for us to get this school reaccredited, this system reaccredited, and hopefully on the way to becoming, again, one of the better school systems in this nation. But I'm sure I'll lose this one. Number 5, that there be an election of officers for the Special Administrative Board, and that those officers be President, Vice President, and Secretary, and that this election take place at the next public meeting of the Special Administrative Board. One of the reasons I think it's important that it does not take place tonight is because I have asked for an understanding of the CEO position as it's now constituted by the State Attorney General's office. I think it would be presumptuous of us to effectively put in place another structure for managing our business and running this body until we at least have a position from the State Attorney General's office. Not that it would be binding on anyone, but at least it would weigh in as another position. And I'm going to say this, I don't know what that position would be. You know, if I were a lawyer, as my wife tells me, you'd never ask a question that you don't have the answer. But I'm asking a question here, I don't have the answer. I don't know how they would read it. I know how I've read this law. I know how other people that I've talked to have read this law. And I'm saying State Attorney General is the person that you normally go to if you want clarification. And they have chosen to get back with my request as soon as possible. And again, I invite both of you to my office, or I could make arrangements for you to hear the conversation and participate in the conversation via telephone. Those represent all of the things that I bring before this body this evening. But I'd like to conclude by saying this. There have been people who've asked, what do I feel about the takeover? I did not agree to this takeover. I fought against it. I thought it was not the best thing for this school system for a number of reasons. But let me tell you where I am with this. That train has left the station. We are involved in this to the degree that we can to try and make things work. Now, one of the constructive problems we have is how do we, if we choose to, deal with the elected school board. And let me tell you one of the ways I think we do it. We do it by figuring out a way to talk. We got to figure up here a way to talk to one another. I'm convinced we will. But we got to figure that out so that you would understand, because I don't think anybody knows this. The first 2 things that I asked to be affirmed in my presentation tonight were items that were presented to me, and I was asked by Peter Downs, Mr. Gaines, would you try and see that the SAB follows suit on these because these are critical issues? I say to 2 of you, we will have hard times. I'm going to have hard times tonight when y'all beat up on me. But we do agree, I do agree with Mr. Downs, and I do agree with the elected board that these are 2 things that we would have to fight, and we would have to continue to fight on. And I am pleasantly, well, I just feel good that we got through something tonight that we agree on entirely. And I'm thankful for your vote in this regard. Now, your turn to tear me apart and to beat up on me.
Well, if I can intervene before you, unless you have a response to his remarks.
I'll respond after you respond.
Are you saying, Mr. Gaines, you do not want to put either of these matters into a motion for vote tonight?
Well, I would only say that in the event that we had, I would be more than willing to table these if you would choose to do that, if you would be as well willing to table the recommendations that will come next.
Well, these are Ms. Adams' recommendations.
Well, okay. If Ms. Adams would be willing to table hers, I'd be more than willing to table mine.
If I can weigh into this, I believe these are matters that need to be resolved this evening. We have, I think, conflicting viewpoints in either of these matters. Your recommendation is one way, and as I read it, Ms. Adams has one in a different way. On both points, I believe the matter needs to be addressed tonight, one way or the other.
Well, I won't be able to stop them from being addressed. That's obvious. What I would say to you is that I think, given the fact that I don't know why it's so important that they have to be done tonight, we have functioned through 2 meetings with no structure whatsoever. I don't see, we've gotten through the majority of this tonight. We have passed all of the amendments that were brought before us. We have deliberated. We have had substantial agreement on issues. We've had some disagreement on issues. But we've figured out a way to get through this tonight. I didn't come in and take that seat, which is by structure usually the seat of the chair. I think it's presumptuous that you would take that seat. However, I sat over here where I was placed to sit, and I sat here very quietly and accepted that placement. All jokes aside, and some of this is a joke between Rick and myself, I think we'd be better served if we table both of them. Whether or not anybody would change their mind, I don't know. I can't speak for anyone else.
Okay. Ms. Adams, if we can move to the recommendations that you have put on the agenda.
Sure. The first thing I'd like to do is respond to Mr. Gaines in terms of his comments. And I think we can agree, you seem to think we're hell-bent on, I guess, beating up on you, and that is not the case. Hopefully you will take this in the same vein that we have taken your comments. But we would like to work ourselves out of a job. So I don't want you to think that we are setting something up that then we plan to be doing this, more than the allotted time. That being said, I did bring this proposal before you because I did not feel it was appropriate to just accept the previous bylaws, because I think there was a lot of language in there that did not necessarily apply to the current board. And based on what you said, saying that we need to be like everyone else in the country, like every other district in the state, except Wellston, essentially, by adopting similar bylaws, I just did not believe that, because part of our role as a special administrative board is to explore alternative forms of government. And so my belief right now is that as a special administrative board, it is up to us to figure out what is the best way to help run the district. And I believe that by adopting the bylaws that were presented this evening, in my opinion, that is the best way to move forward.
I could speak to that. There are times that we need to be creative. There really are. We've seen a great deal of creativity presented here this evening. It's not necessary to be creative just for the sake of being creative. I think to how we do our business, if it's consistent with the way over 97% of all school boards in this country do it, the way that this system has done it, it is familiar for the people who are here now in terms of how they deal with accountability. I've had a real concern voiced to me about Mr. Sullivan's position, how it has been accepted, who do they talk to. And when you have a situation, we're all going to make mistakes. But when you make a mistake and you practically have no way, because you dilute the effectiveness or the power of the final body, which is this board, I think that's a mistake.
But based on the 2 bylaws, as I have read them, the only 2 differences really are the title. Instead of having president as CEO, and the second one deals with when we're going to have our meetings. It currently has in there Tuesdays and once a month. Those are really the only 2 differences.
No, ma'am. I beg to differ. The difference is in the fact that president is recognized as the president of the board of directors of most school systems in this country. CEO is not a recognized position as a leadership position that has the authority vested in it on a board standpoint that this one is. I would venture to say that you won't find that anywhere. I think it's wrong. It does not only do, and this is not a slap at Mr. Sullivan, but if Mr. Sullivan, for instance, is not reaffirmed, or if it's not confirmed,
Right.
and there's somebody else that sits in his seat, they automatically would assume the position of CEO of the board.
Right.
I don't think that's right. I think that we should basically vote for someone who is not already also charged with the responsibility of running these schools, and at the same time being the titular head. The only spokesman for this school system by structure would then be Mr. Sullivan, whether it's a matter of policy or a matter of implementation of policy. I think that is dramatically different. It's not just 2 points. That's a dramatic difference, the way I see it.
So based on your reading of it, and you said that you helped draft this, so when you at the time that you drafted it, what was your intent then? Did you?
Well, the intent was that if a school system does not function properly, the intent was very simple. The first thing you do is you eliminate, quote, the superintendent, because that is the person who carries out the structure. The second thing you do is you do what has happened is you replace the board, because the two of them are the ones who basically formulate the policy and implement that policy. Where we have a difference, Ms. Adams, is that I don't think you give one person a titular head to do both of those. I just don't think you do that. You have a divergent opinion from implementation as well as someone who's addressing the public relative to policy. If, as an example, not Mr. Sullivan, I don't want to put this on, but if, as an example, the CEO makes a grave mistake, and he also sets the agenda that we come to talk to, I would hate to be in a position where we got to determine when that's going to be on the agenda. And that's the sort of thing we put in place here.
Ms. Adams, would you like to make a motion here?
I move to adopt the proposed bylaws of the Special Administrative Board of the Transitional School District of St. Louis as circulated.
I second that motion. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Ms. Penrose?
Ms. Adams?
Approve.
Mr. Gaines?
No.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. Adams, you had another item here.
Yes, I would like to propose, or I'd like to move for the election of officers for the Special Administrative Board for the positions of Vice President, Treasurer, and Secretary, with the election to follow nominations as directed in proposed Special Administrative Bylaw 1B3.
You have nominations.
Sorry.
For people.
Sure. Nomination for Vice President, Melanie Adams. Nomination for Secretary, Mr. Richard Gaines.
Second?
Is it, the motion's on the floor now?
Motion's on
for
the
those,
floor.
For those, both of those? Because of my beliefs, I will not accept the position of Secretary.
If I could ask a question. Ms. Duker, this board can function without a person in the role of Secretary Treasurer?
Yes.
Okay, so we would
You
operate,
can appoint someone.
We function without anything to this point, so I'm certain.
well, we gotta get that fixed. So you are concurring that we would go forward with me in the role of CEO. Pardon?
You can elect a non-board member.
I think Ms. Duker is telling us that we could nominate or name a non-board member to serve as treasurer and or secretary. Is the advice I am given. The roles would be me as CEO, Ms. Adams as vice president, and Mr. Gaines has refused the nomination as treasurer secretary. Any other discussion? Ms. Penrose?
Ms. Adams?
Approve.
Ms. Gaines? Mr. Gaines?
I don't know what to say here. I don't agree with it, so I guess I say no.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Any other business? Ms. Adams, Mr. Gaines? Yes.
You ready for that motion?
You don't make that motion either?
To adjourn?
Adjourn? Yes. To close session, please. Executive session.
I move that we adjourn to executive session. Can I get a
Second.
second? Oh, good.
Ms. Adams?
Adjourn.